Hello guys, welcome back to Not Just Make. It's Marco here, and today we talk about color wheel and color theory.
Of Sheldon Cooper presents Fun with Flags.
Guys, this video is very important for me and for the channel. The terms I'll explain today are vital to be able to communicate between us in an effective way. And these topics in general are the base, the very foundation to understand colors, painting, not only miniature painting, and become better painters at every level, even only to find a better color scheme for your army. Speaking about art as miniature painters, we are still in a strange, undefined grey area. We create beautiful works of art, but sometimes we lack the knowledge and the comprehension of concepts that are totally natural and basic for any other kind of painter or colorist. So, this is my little humble contribution to the cause of bringing a bit of light on these topics. So, why do we speak about color theory and not about color theorem or color rules? History, as always, has the answers we need. The first printed color wheel originated in England in the late Middle Ages. It was actually published in a medical textbook by Robert Flood, who recommended using the color wheel to observe abnormalities in patients' urine. So, definitely color wheels weren't a big deal in the Middle Ages. Until the 15th century, the main painting approaches, like fresco and tempera, the two main techniques of medieval painting, used water-based colors based on pigments often unstable, and that could easily create unwanted and sometimes unpredictable short-term reactions, and also changes in the long term. But quite suddenly in the Flanders first, then in Italy and the rest of Europe, a very old but very underrated medium became popular: oil paints. Pigments melt in water, while oil incorporates the pigment in an oily layer, becoming a hard and stable film when it dries. And being fluid, it's very easy to create mixes and new colors, reducing unpredictable chemical reactions that at the time were a big issue. A new kind of paint changes obviously also the basic workflow of painters, and for this reason a new object starts to appear: the palette. Before the 16th century we don't have any trace of it, but we know that painters used paints from single pure jars of colors. Sounds familiar? This is exactly what you see when you watch an official Games Workshop tutorial. A painting approach perfect for a 15th century painter. So, we are in the middle of the 16th century, and the revolution of the color mixes brings out a new question. If colors can be mixed together to create new tones, what are the basic colors to start with? A good question still asked by every miniature painter. In the 17th century, the perspective around these concepts start to change, and the same question becomes a scientific problem.
Moses Harris, entomologist and engraver, not strictly a painter, publishes the first color wheel based on 3 colors that generate all the visible spectrum, meant to become a model and a reference for all the artists. It's during the 18th century that we have, I think, the most fascinating academic battle about color theory and color wheels. We have on one side the studies of Isaac Newton to thank for a true understanding of colors. Newton was the first to attribute color to light, and his color wheel from Optics was published in 1704. He arranged the primary colors in a circle, placing the complementary colors between each primary, thereby inventing a very modern-looking color wheel, but it contained an asymmetrical 7 colors. On the other side, we have the symmetrical color wheel by Goethe, representing 6 colors. All his life, Goethe vehemently opposed Newton's teachings. He contested that colors are associated with emotional states, like reason and goodness are yellow for Goethe.
Which, although an interesting body of thought, hasn't gained wide respect since we perceive colors so subjectively. Even if it's true that colors have a powerful symbolic meaning, really powerful, Newton was certainly on the right track with his pure scientific assessments of color. Terms like beauty and aesthetics have a lot to do with the culture we live in.
So, for example, our color of mourning and death is black, where in Japan white is worn to symbolize the loss.
It's only in the 20th century that these two totally different ways to explain the subject are merged together in a beautiful mix of illuministic science and metaphysical mystical influences by the artists of the Bauhaus school.
The most common color wheel you see around was influenced by the Bauhaus teacher Johann Sitten.
So now we know where the color wheel comes from, but before the wheel we need to talk about its basic components, the colors. Across the light spectrum there are actually millions of colors, so instead of describing them with an obscure name like Haverland Sunset or Null Noil, a color can instead be defined by three key features.
The first one is the hue or chroma. This is the identity of the color. There are 7 families in total: blue, violet, red, orange, yellow, green, brown or earth colors in general, and grays. There are millions of colors around us, but I assume that you can all put them in one of these big families fairly easily. Then we have the brightness, or better the value of the tone. This defines how light or how dark the color is. The figure depicts how the hue of the color stays the same, but different levels of white and black are added to give a paler or darker version of the hue, thus creating a change in value. And then we have the saturation. These characterize how intense the color is. The figure shows the potential range of saturation on a mid-green hue. Note that the value is always the same from left to right, only the saturation changes.
So, at this point, why do we need a system for organizing colors at all? A look at your paint set will answer that question. Systems facilitate the work. The color wheel is a great aid because it offers a simple, easy to understand system from which we can accurately derive color contrast and color harmonies. Most of the color harmony systems are based on the color wheel, so it not only organizes but also maps our human perception of the colors.
So, let's start with the topics that every kid in school already knows. The primary colors are red, yellow and blue. To simplify, we call them primary because they cannot be created from a mixture of the other colors. The secondary colors are orange, violet and green. These are made by mixing primary colors together. Red and yellow make orange, blue and red make violet, and blue and yellow make green. The tertiary colors are created by mixing a primary and a secondary color. For example, blue-green is a mix of blue and green. Complementary colors are two hues that are directly opposite on the color wheel. So, red is a complement of green, blue is the complement of orange, and yellow is the complement of violet. If you put two complementary colors against one another, it seems to create a very vibrant contrast. Impressionists sometimes use this trick to create special effects in their work. If you mix two opposites on the color wheel, you will create a neutral color such as gray.
We are starting now to be deeply inside color theory because the main use of a color wheel is to easily understand and to easily plan your color harmonies. Harmony rules are not absolute truth, nor must be strictly applied. They are more a starting point or a guideline to choose from tones and to create your general scheme. Harmony perception is different from each kind of spectator, so the author of a model can decide when to break or forget them where necessary.
In all the basic color harmonies, there are three colors. One dominant, the color that is widespread or best stand out on a model. The support color that acts as a conciliator and means of transition between each of the previous colors. And the accent. This is the opposite of the dominant color. It is the strongest in color and value, and it's used as a touch of animation and boldness in any element. It's used to focus the attention on a precise point of the model and to tell a precise story.
Let's take a look to basic color schemes and color harmonies that you can find almost everywhere, from miniatures to every kind of commercial product.
Here is the monochromatic scheme, very easy to understand, very elegant. It is based on one color and its various shades, differentiated by different values and different saturations. It is difficult to carry out on miniatures because until the work is done, the different parts can look confusing. But once all the elements are painted, defined and harmonized, then the scheme works really well and gives a great effect to the model. You have an analogous scheme when you use colors that are closely related on the color wheel. These enable the human eye to easily move from one to another, and they are called analogous because one of the colors is repeated inside the others. Analogous schemes can be made from 3 or 4 colors. This type of combination is very frequent in nature, really natural, so it works really well. This is a complementary scheme. As we said, complementary colors are those opposite on the color wheel. By using them, very eye-catching and contrasting harmonies are created. Here the colors reinforce themselves mutually in such a way that the same color seems brighter and more intense when placed next to its opposite. They are ideal to catch the attention or for projects that require a strong effect. This is an equidistant triad. This is made of any 3 shades, evenly placed around the color wheel, in the shape of an equilateral triangle. For example, blue, red and yellow. It's very eye-catching. It has been traditionally used from the design of superhero uniforms in the comic industry. You have also a less striking but really powerful alternative to the equidistant triad, the split complementary scheme. In this case, the colors close to each other on the color wheel act respectively as dominant and support color, while the other acts like the accent, create a really strong contrast and a really powerful effect.
It's important to say that you are not really limiting yourself and your palette to only 3 colors. These are not the only colors of the composition, but they are simply the tones that set the overall trend of the miniature. But they are not the only ones. You have the freedom and almost the obligation to use as many neutral colors as you like or need to bring everything together. And by neutral colors, I mean colors that have a visual impact minimal compared to the others of the main harmony. Usually we are speaking of grays, earthy tones or unsaturated colors in general, sometimes including skin tones if skin is not a valid focus of the model.
Lastly, for your color compositions, you must keep in mind that when you choose your color harmony combination, the atmosphere and sensation that you want to transmit with your figure must influence your decision. To do this, you can keep in mind the following short guide of sensation that colors produce in the spectator.
Guys, I really hope you enjoyed these first steps inside color theory. It's a vast and complex topic, and today we saw just the tip of a huge iceberg. Next time we talk in detail about values and lights and how they define our perception of a model, its volumes and the story it tells. And if you had the patience to watch this video until this point, here is another useful tip. These are the 2 main color wheels I have always on my table. You can find something like this in any art and craft store. It's really simple to use and it comes with a bunch of useful information written on top.
It's nice, especially for beginners, because it's super easy to get the information you need. Here you have a grayscale of values for reference. In the outer circle, all the basic tones, primary, secondary, tertiary. And moving the wheel around, you can see what happens adding red, yellow, blue, white and black to each of the colors. On the other side, you can see what happens to each pure color, adding white and becoming a tint, adding gray and becoming a tone, and adding black and becoming a shade. While in the circle here in the middle, you can test easily some basic harmonies, and you just need to move it around to check. Complementary
on top. But my favorite one is this one. It's the real color wheel. To simplify, this one is based on the concept that paints in real life are made by pigments, obviously, that react together in different ways than ideal colors based on light, like in the red, blue, green model used for monitors, where colors darken to black, simply decreasing light and not adding something in a mix like in the real world, like painting. The opposition of colors is a bit different, you can see, compared to the other wheels, and this allows you to create more precise mixing for your shadows especially, and your tones in general, without using black pigments. So the complementarity is a bit different and is a bit better. I know it's a complex topic, but I'll come back on this concept in the future, so don't worry. In the meanwhile, I'll leave a link to this wheel in the description of the video. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe. Remember that you can always ask me anything down below with a comment, and you can follow my projects during the week using one of my socials. So, see you next week, guys!